Before we begin, I want to apologize if my voice sounds a little crackly. I think I might be coming down with something. When Five Nights at Freddy's first released, there wasn't the Rolodex of the cast that we know today. There were only arguably 7 characters, but fans took to them well. There were the main animatronics, Freddy, Chica, and Bonnie. There was the faceless and voiceless night guard named Mike, and the faceless and nameless but exceptionally chatty phone guy. There was even the mysterious Golden Freddy. But there was one character who had their popularity boom very early on, Foxy the Pirate. Foxy stood out amongst the other animatronics both for his more broken and intimidating design and for his standout mechanics. Foxy would stay in Pirate's Cove, and if you didn't look at him frequently enough, he would run down the hallway and, if you had fast enough reflexes, crash into your door and take out a chunk of power. If he made it in, he had a jump scare different from his bandmates, one both startling and somewhat comedic. You have Freddy, Chica, and Bonnie sticking their faces in yours, and then you have Foxy sliding in like he just skidded in on a banana peel. Have you ever seen Seinfeld? If you haven't, go look up a compilation of Kramer's entrances. You'll get the picture. There are also random occurrences where you can assumedly hear Foxy singing the pirate song. Here's a sample. In hindsight, it's not surprising that Foxy was latched onto, not just for his design elements, but these differing mechanics. Unlike walking to a door or just appearing outside, purposefully hiding from the camera and then running as fast as he can to not get caught could be read as characterization. Makes Foxy seem a little more intelligent and a little more alive. Plus, he was deemed more agile because of the fact that he could sprint. Foxy was different. Foxy was the cool one. He was everyone's favorite. But would that popularity last? Well, let's take a look. Fnaf 2 brought Foxy back as Withered Foxy. Asterisks there, as the game technically takes place before Fnaf 1, but since it was released after it, he was brought back, with the addition of another Foxy variation in the form of Mangle. I discussed Mangle in another video, so I won't here, besides mentioning that when the first teaser of Mangle came out, people didn't really warm up to the pink and white soft version of Foxy like they did to the original. Something that ended up not mattering is Mangle itself wasn't the pink and soft version of Foxy they were anticipating. But Withered Foxy, the other Foxy in the game, is much closer to the classic Foxy we are discussing today. The Withered animatronics are old variations of the band who were reused for parts and then abandoned in the back room, leading to them now roaming the pizzeria at night. Withered Foxy is in a broken state, though compared to Chica and Bonnie, he seems to be holding up pretty well. He can still make his way down the hall, and you must act quickly to flash your light at him to drive him away. Another notable moment in the game is the Foxy Go minigame. In the minigame, Foxy is called from his curtain to run into a room with a bunch of children. Until the third go-around, when Foxy comes out to find the purple man standing nearby and the children in the party room unresponsive. Deceased. It's a rather disturbing minigame if you think about it any longer than you're supposed to. So let's move on to Foxy's third appearance in Fnaf 3, where Foxy, like some of the other favorites such as Freddy, Mangle, BB, and the Puppet, returned as a phantom animatronic. Phantom Foxy, like the others, can't hurt you and can only jump scare you and mess up your flow. There's not really much to say here. While Foxy is there, he doesn't have a standout role or any real standout minigames. Foxy appears again as Nightmare Foxy in Fnaf 4, though his arguably bigger role is as a cameo mask the Big Brother character wears. Foxy comes out of the closet and you just have to keep warding him off. Like all of the animatronics to that point, Foxy appears in Fnaf World and is one of the 8 initial players you can start the game with. There's not too much to say about him though, except a particular tidbit that came alongside the Halloween update. So, Foxy got a parody minigame in the update called Foxy EXE. Basically, you move across the screen while listening to Foxy's commands. What's weird is Foxy's voice.
Listen to my voice, and you will find the key. When you can see, how fast can you flee? Be sure your step through the heart of madness.
This is technically the first known example of Foxy's voice save the pirate song from the first game, but it doesn't match his established voice later. It doesn't even have a pirate accent. I'm not sure if this was going to be his voice and was just changed later, which was probably a good idea. I'm not saying this is a bad voice, it just doesn't sound like you would imagine a pirate fox to sound. Sister Location is the first Fnaf game without a classic Foxy, but in exchange we got Funtime Foxy. Reception of Funtime Foxy wasn't nearly as decisive as to Mangle, but I think that might have been because Mangle had sort of proved that a Foxy could be different but still be intriguing. Funtime Foxy sort of fell into the background of his bandmates though. Not saying Funtime Foxy was a bad character, but in his role as a voiceless antagonist alongside two extremely chatty antagonists, he kind of fell into the background. There's another Foxy variant in Pizzeria Simulator. This is Rockstar Foxy. We'll discuss him more in the Ultimate Custom Night section, since he doesn't do much in this game. Okay, onto the Ultimate Custom Night section. Foxy, as expected, returns as one of the enemies, as do plenty of other Foxy variants such as Mangle, Funtime Foxy, and Rockstar Foxy. Foxy's trick this time around is a little different than his old one. Foxy no longer runs into your office, but sneakily shoves parts of himself in when you're not looking. Not looking at the curtain in Pirate's Cove, that is. He's not too difficult to manage, but when paired against him and Bonnie, the other animatronic who utilizes the curtain and who you can't look at, it can get tricky quick. This is also where Foxy finds his voice, the first of his band to do so, and it's...
Never underestimate the cunning of a pirate, or a fox for that matter.
Dead on. I can't speak for everyone, but this Foxy sounds so especially Foxy. It even aligns with the pirate song cameos in the first game. Foxy's voice portrays him as significantly more charismatic to some of his animatronic peers, and a little more comedic.
I came for ye booty. That be treasure, you know.
Though the difference between Foxy's comic aspect and, say, Toy Freddy's, that Foxy, while telling some jokes in his dialogue, doesn't give off the joke character vibe. More so, he gives off more of a possible character trait. We'll go deeper into that later. Rockstar Foxy is also a standout. He has a parrot that circles through the office. If you click on it, you get a treat or buff, and there's a small chance you might get jump scared. The higher the level Rockstar Foxy is, the higher the chance he'll jump scare you. Here's a bird-clicking success line and a death line back-to-back.
Yarg, me bird likes you, so I'll do ye a favor. Yarg, ye play with fire, and sometimes ye get burned.
There's also a set of unlockable cutscenes about a faux TV series involving Freddy Fazbear trying to reclaim his honor by getting vengeance on Foxy of the Foxy clan. Foxy is portrayed as being cunning, outsmarting Freddy at every avenue. This seems to be the first time Freddy and Foxy are portrayed directly as rivals, unless you count, like, the Fazbear and Friends TV show teasers for Security Breach. To cover those quickly too, Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica travel around while Foxy tries to spoil their fun in a Hanna-Barbera villain Team Rocket sort of way, only to eventually be befriended when he's offered pizza. Sorry, that was a little off topic, but it was worth noting, especially since both have that same fake cartoon aesthetic to deliver their teasers. All in all though, when it comes to Ultimate Custom Night, great showing. And it only gets better in Help Wanted. Foxy features in a few minigames. He stars in the original FNAF 1 and 2 remake, and the Foxy Repair section, where you have to replace fuses while Foxy fidgets around. And you can't take your eyes off of him, or he'll bolt. There's also a harder variation, where he's burning and you're trying to shove batteries into him. It's the Halloween update where Foxy gets an addition that might have sealed Foxy's fate. One of the extra minigames is a dark ride where you fire at targets as you go through. Arguably, at least in my opinion, one of the best minigames in the entire game. The dark ride is Foxy the Pirate themed, but not just Foxy themed, wholly submerged in Captain Foxy. Foxy is now featured in a spiffy pirate jacket and accessories, though note that this is still the classic Foxy design. The cutouts throughout the ride portray Foxy in the middle of a pirate adventure where he gets attacked by the Kraken, sinks to the bottom of the sea, and discovers the ancient treasure that is friendship. It really is a neat portrayal, and to see Foxy portrayed as his own character and with his own themes separate from the Freddy band. Sure, Chica appears in the ride, but Foxy really is the star here. And this, surprisingly, carries over into Security Breach. While Foxy doesn't appear as a character, his spot is filled by the similarly shaped but differently marketed Roxanne Wolf. The Pizzaplex has Foxy memorabilia all over the place. Cardboard cutouts, posters, displays, the Kids Cove section even seems themed after it. I can't say for sure if Foxy himself was cut for the game or if there had been an actual Pirates Cove section that was cut. but there's definitely a lot of him in there. It's kind of bizarre in a way. Think about it, Glamrock Freddy and his band all adhere to the themes of the Pizzaplex, typically leaning towards a futuristic or space theme. And then you have Foxy, who's still doing the pirate thing. He pretty much has his own branding exclusively for him. The other Freddy and friends adhere to his theming when in his playground. Technically, this is the most recent game, but let's take a step back and talk about some of the other games we got along the way, such as Fnaf AR. Foxy is yet another character that was in Fnaf Special Delivery Fnaf AR at release. Foxy was faster than Freddy, Chica, and Bonnie, but still seemed to lean on the easier side of the characters, somewhere in the middle difficulty of the initial group. Foxy has a slew of new lines, many of these being significantly more threatening than before.
Signs of time are almost gone for you. Not long yet, before ye will be feeding the fishes. I've got you now!
However, many of these still hold Foxy's more playful disposition as well.
Me hook is getting mighty hungry. Shall we parley? Just kidding.
Remember how I said that Foxy's voice is pretty much what you'd expect? Well, his personality seems to be pretty much what you'd expect too. Cocky and dangerous, but charming and personable. Very spot on for what might be expected of a pirate. Foxy's a funny case because you do get that threatening vibe with him, but you also get that, now this is a guy I could drive to Vegas with, feeling. Which is an exaggerated way of saying he's likable. Foxy has 3 skins. That's on the higher side of the spectrum. However, Foxy has a special quirk with one of his skins that, to my knowledge, no other skin has. That would be the Big Bad Foxy costume, where when he attacks, he throws on an old granny costume. Foxy was also one of the animatronics featured in the Dark Circus DLC with his ringleader Foxy skin. He was released before this, but this gave him an extra cutscene and, I think, a pretty guaranteed chance to get him, since you can play the DLC over. Now moving on, I don't tend to talk about the side games such as Freddy in Space 2 and Fury's Rage. In this case, I will. Specifically Freddy in Space 2, where Foxy is an unlockable and playable character. In fact, if you go in order, he is the first additional character you can unlock. He jumps good. His attack is sort of like a flamethrower that you really have to upgrade before it's not relatively useless. He also appears as an enemy character in Fury's Rage. Fury's Rage had animatronic skins from Fnaf AR as their enemies, like Broiler Baby, Clown Trap, there's even a Glamrock puppet. Radioactive Foxy is the Foxy variant. Not a big cameo, but more Foxy. Now that we have squared away all the games, let's move on to the books. Foxy has a notable inclusion of the Silver Eyes, specifically in his interactions with Charlie. The book opens with Charlie being chased by him while crawling behind some arcade cabinets, which is a clip from later on in the book. Early in the book, Charlie mentions being wary of a Foxy endoskeleton in her father's garage when she was young. Later, she is accidentally cut by Foxy's hook when one of her friends, I believe it was Marla, presses a button on the control panel. Then after that, sometime later, when the animatronics are active and chasing the group, Charlie is then pursued by Foxy, which is the scene at the opening of the book. He comes together with the rest of the animatronics at the end to drag Afton away after his springlock failure. While Foxy has pretty much no real role beyond animatronic monster, he does seem to have a peculiar amount of spotlight, though that is likely because he is the most visually threatening of the 4. He appears in the Twisted Ones as well. He and the rest of Freddy's band shows up for a little while after being woken up in Police Chief Clayburg's basement. They fight off the Twisted Ones and then I think they kinda walk into the fog and just are gone. Foxy is almost featured in the 4th closet but is mercifully spared. He and his band are melted into an amalgam, and that's pretty much it. Except, notably, this book reveals that the Foxy endoskeleton was actually the 4th Charlie who became Circus Baby. You know what they say, inside every pirate is a lady in a red dress. Fazbear Frights features Foxy a few times, though for the leading role he only really has one, and that's Step Closer. To keep the story short, an older brother drags his younger brother to Foxy to scare him, and ends up getting assumedly cursed when Foxy sings that he's going to lose an eye and an arm. From that point on, older brother keeps having bad luck. There's a spontaneous car accident, he's in the hospital, and apparently not brain dead when he hears that the doctors are going to remove his eye and his arm to transplant. Not the typical transplant choices, but okay. He dies. Younger brother goes back to Freddy's only to find that Foxy is now unresponsive. It's an okay story. Foxy doesn't really do much in it, and the only connection is kinda lopsided, but, it works. At least Foxy has a starring role. Except no, it was actually Eleanor in disguise. No, I'm not joking. Okay, Foxy's not in Lonely Freddy, but there is a thing that the main character is willing to ruin his sister's birthday for, and it's a Yarg Foxy plush. Here's a picture of it from one of the books. Ain't he spiffy? They should sell this as a plush. I'd buy it in a second. And that's pretty much where the books end. He, or parts of him, appear in other stories, but they don't have enough significance to bring up. And now, we're all up to date, unless I missed something. It's weird to look back at FNAF 1 and see how much has changed since then. We have had 5 generations of Freddy Fazbears, not counting the nightmares and hallucinations. Freddy, once a plush and silent antagonist, has most recently been portrayed as Glamrock Freddy, a high-tech but lovably clueless father figure. Chica variations have evolved from yellow and orange plump chicks to lean, mean, white feather chicken ladies. Bonnie's still around, but usually plays second fiddle to the other bunny-shaped villains looming in the spotlight. New bandmates Roxanne Wolf and Monty Gator were added in Security Breach, adding in new colorful characters. Long gone is the puppet, here comes the sun and the moon and the space in between. Fazbear Entertainment crashing and burning and rising from the ashes only to burn again and again. We've seen plenty of promising faces come and go. And Foxy hasn't changed. He's changed a little, now being shown in a spiffy pirate getup, but have you noticed how little Foxy has changed? Help Wanted's new design of him, which survived into Security Breach, is so close to his initial iteration that it's almost jarring amongst his bandmates. He no longer fits in with them, and yet Foxy's presence is painted all up and down and backwards across the Pizzaplex. He wasn't even in the game, and yet he's still this prominent, even when he technically has someone filling his role. And not only that, but Foxy is still so prolific in the games and merchandise. The next line of merch not only shows off 2 new Foxy variants, Clown and Balloon Foxy, but he's also getting a classic statue released at what is otherwise a very peculiar time. People speculate that the Puppet Lefty statue is coming out because they'll appear in Ruin, but I sort of doubt original Foxy will be in Ruin. I would much more assume that Captain Foxy would be there, or more than likely Clown Foxy. But all this aside, what I'm trying to say is that Foxy is one of the few rare examples in FNAF where a character has lived up to their potential, is still very prevalent, and hasn't had any of the major updates some of his bandmates had. And I'm not saying those updates are bad, not at all, but I am saying that Foxy is believably the same character now as when he first came in. Foxy was a favorite, and I think that might be why he was kept so close to his roots. Who could have thought that one of the most consistent and longest lasting characters in FNAF was one of the ones who had been around from the very beginning? And yes, he's still the cool one, even if his newest variant looks just a little on the Scottish Fold side.